A lot of people just take your certificate, your Apollo or your Cyton certificate, and they go, yes, my certificate is good. Sometimes the end user doesn't know and they accept it, but it's not actually an acceptable system.
Hi everybody, and welcome back to Talking Fire with the Fire Detection Industry Association. Today we're touching on a fairly known topic, but a topic that often comes up, and there's a lot of perception that systems have been done correctly, but they in fact haven't, and that is hazardous areas and intrinsic safety. So today we are focusing on intrinsically safe areas. That falls under an EXI. We are of the understanding that the EXD and that explosion-proof devices can be used in certain zones of hazardous areas. However, today we're just going to focus on EXI. We're going to touch on what the requirements are and what certifications need to be put in place for that system to actually be signed off. So just to start off, obviously a hazardous area, there are different zone ratings, and that's a zone 0, a zone 1, and a zone 2. These are based on the amount of time that the hazardous gas or dust or whatever is actually going to be in that area, the explosive thing. So if it's going to be in the area all the time, zone 0. So zone 0 is your most hazardous area. Then zone 1 is obviously the actual hazard is not in that area all the time, but commonly in the area. And then zone 2, there's potential that the hazard can be in the area. So I'm sitting here with the chairman, Clive Ford, who I believe has done quite a lot of intrinsically safe areas, and through school fees and learning from relative
mistakes made,
has now got a good understanding of what's required. Clive, maybe you just want to touch on certifications, systems you've done, and where you've fallen short before and how you've learned to rectify that.
Awesome. Thanks, Hilton. Yeah. As Hilton says, we're going to be looking at intrinsically safe areas, and We've gone through this quite a lot, and I've done quite a lot of installations at petrochemical installations and hazardous areas. When we do an installation, we thought we were very clever, so we went off to the supplier and we bought ourselves intrinsically safe detectors and barriers, and we installed it. And we thought we are super duper heroes. Comes out that your certification that you're getting on your detectors, on your barriers, and that is not adequate. That is only to say that your device is usable in an intrinsically safe area. It's a compliance certificate for intrinsic areas. At the end of the day, when you finish your installation, you've got to have your whole system certified by a place like, for instance, Expo Labs. They take your certification of your devices, your cable specifications, and on that you need your cable lengths, you need your insulation between your conductors, a whole raft of stuff which is on your cable specification, and they then run a calculation to give you a certificate that your system is compliant to be installed into the IX area. Your cable lengths, your earthing of your conduits in your galvanic and your Xena barriers or your galvanic barriers, and Hilton's going to tell you what's the difference there. And all of this has to be certified before you can hand over to the end user. A lot of people just take your certificate, your Apollo or your Cyton certificate, and they go, yes, my certificate is good. Sometimes the end user doesn't know and they accept it, but it's not actually an acceptable system. Also, which I learned quite recently, is the system has to be inspected and checked once a year to make sure that there's been no changes.
And that check needs to be done by the intrinsically safe specialist.
Yeah. So you send it back to them and you go, listen, my installation has still got 2 meters of cable, I've still got that device, will you please certify it again? And that costs a substantial amount of money for each and every system.
Yeah, well, we've in previous videos we've been talking about life safety and property safety, but these IS areas, the reality is the explosion, should something go wrong, that the actual radius will cause extensive damage in some cases, especially in, as you mentioned, petrochem, or where they're using a lot of hazardous chemicals and stuff. So
yeah, where we sit in, Waterfontein is sort of over there, and I don't know how true it is, but there's a story that if there's an explosion at Waterfontein, well, us here in Edenvale can just hopefully our insurance policies are paid up. And that's the kind of problems that we can experience.
Well, let's hope they're watching this video. Just to touch on Xena barriers and galvanic isolators and what the difference is. The more we divulge into fire, I think the more we look for less failure points or less potential points of failure for the system to work correctly. Now, traditionally, Xena barriers have just been purchased or by the installer. They've gone from the safe area into the hazardous area. They've connected the devices up. They've put the end of line. They've tested. They've walked away. What needs to happen for a Xena barrier is that it has to be connected to an intrinsically safe, certified earth.
Yeah. Earth mat, spike into it, certified that you don't have any issues.
This obviously now comes down to part of your installation falls back onto the responsibility of the electrician that's supplying you the earth. So what the market's move has had a move towards using galvanic isolators, because galvanic isolators allow you to have a floating earth. So although we always encourage earthing on all systems, it should be earth, there should be a point of earth specifically in a surge or in a lightning storm or whatever. A galvanic isolator does not require that earth to be IS rated, and it can be not earthed if there's no option for earth. So we recommend that solution a lot more. There's very specific ones for fire detection as well. They've actually been designed specifically for fire detection.
You've got to be very aware of that, because especially if you're working on an addressable system, your barriers that you put in place on your addressable line can affect your end result onto your panel. So you've got to be very sure that you are getting the correct device to be on an addressable line.
And talking about addressable intrinsic safety, there's a lot of installers that think using a protocol translator. So a protocol translator, all it does is tell your panel that we are now entering an IS area and they can expect a drop of voltage and current. That is purely what that device does.
Yeah.
However, you still need to use an isolator or a barrier.
Yep.
And you cannot exceed, if I'm not correct,
five units on a protocol translator. So if you've got a big warehouse where you've got 20 devices in there to cover it, every 5 devices you need a protocol translator. Otherwise you overload it and you're getting incorrect information back to your addressable panel again.
I think if anyone has questions regarding intrinsic safety, that they should speak to their supplier companies. Supplier companies are required to get their stuff conformity checked. They do have information available from their international suppliers, as well as get in touch with the Fire Detection Industry Association. As you know, we've got a lot of knowledge around the table, people such as Clive that have dabbled in this part of the market for a long time, and we are happy to share that knowledge with the end user, with other installation companies. I think the drive to uplift the industry and get things done properly, and hazardous areas are hazardous for a reason, and they should be protected properly.
One thing that we have also found out with the certification is a lot of the equipment is imported from overseas. So they got the overseas European American certificates. It has to be done on a South African basis as well. So there are companies that will convert your certificate from European to South African. So be aware of that. Before you go to all the trouble of getting your system certified, make sure that you've got the right documentation in place. That's about all I can think of at this moment, so that should cover it. I don't know if you got anything more.
I think if anyone wants information regarding the EXD side of things, just to contact us. Otherwise we're not going to harp on all afternoon about it, but we can share that information as well.
It's a very specialized field. Be aware of it.
Yeah.
That's what we do.
Well, we look forward to feedback, and please send questions or contact us directly.